We've all been sold this amazing story about electric cars, right? This vision of a perfectly clean, green future. But what if that story isn't the whole story? What if there's a really dark side to it? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the real, hidden past of this electric revolution. And we're going to expose a massive choke point that could, honestly, bring the whole thing to a grinding halt. So, what is hiding inside that shiny new electric car? Because let me tell you, it's not just a battery. No way. It's a story of global power, of intense control, and, frankly, a shocking human cost. And this whole story, it all starts with one single critical element. Right, the green promise. Look, for years, the story's been super simple, hasn't it? EVs are the good guys, fossil fuels are the bad guys. It's supposed to be this clean break from our dirty past. But is it really that simple? I don't think so. That promise of a green future, it's powerful, for sure. But today, we're digging in. We're going to investigate what that promise really costs. And at the absolute heart of that cost is this stuff: cobalt. Think of it as the secret sauce, the magic ingredient that makes all those lithium-ion batteries so powerful and so stable. And it is right here with this one mineral that the entire clean green image of the electric car just completely falls apart. Okay, so let's get inside the battery. To really get our heads around the true cost of cobalt, you and we have to follow the supply chain. And that journey, well, it's going to take us to one single country that pretty much holds the keys to the entire EV revolution. And here it is. Just look at this number. It's staggering. 76%. Three-quarters of all the cobalt in the entire world comes from just one place: the Democratic Republic of Congo, or the DRC. I mean, think about that. The whole world's pivot to clean energy, it's all resting on this one single and incredibly volatile place. And that brings us to the Congo connection. This is it, the direct line. It goes from those quiet, high-tech cars we see in our cities straight to the dangerous, often unregulated mines of the DRC. And what we find there, well, it's the first and honestly the most disturbing part of this whole story. 25,000. Just let that number sink in. What is that? Well, according to the U.S. Department of Labor, that's their estimate for the number of children working in the DRC's cobalt mines. Kids. That is the real human cost of what we're calling clean technology. And you know what's really shocking? The line from that mine to your car is incredibly direct. It's not some complicated, roundabout thing. You can see it right here. The cobalt is dug up in a DRC mine, which is very often operated by a Chinese-owned company. Then it's shipped off to a refinery in China. And from there, bam, straight into the global supply chain, into the batteries that power our world. So this all leads to a really important question, right? If the DRC is sitting on all this cobalt, shouldn't they be the ones holding all the cards? Shouldn't they have the power? But you see, in this story, the real power isn't about what's in the ground. No, it's all about the processing. And that right there brings us to the next massive piece of this puzzle, maybe the most critical piece of all: China's complete and utter stranglehold on processing the world's cobalt. This, my friends, is where the real power game is being played. This slide just lays it out so clearly. It's a huge difference. The DRC, they might produce 76% of the raw cobalt ore. They have the ingredients. But China, they control 68% of the refining. They own the kitchen. They control that super complex process that turns raw, rocky ore into the high-purity, battery-grade stuff the whole world is desperate for. And without that refining step, the cobalt from the ground is basically just worthless rock. Yeah, this quote from an industry analyst just nails it. Mines are geography, refining is power. It's as simple as that. And for the last 20 years or so, China has been methodically, systematically building a near-total monopoly on that power. And get this, it's not just cobalt, not by a long shot. Look at this chart. We're talking 68% of cobalt refining, 70% of lithium, and more than 90% of graphite. I mean, wow. This wasn't some accident. This was a deliberate, decades-long strategy. The goal? To make China the one country you absolutely cannot build a battery without. So you're probably asking, okay, how did they lock down the raw material in the first place? Well, it was through a series of incredibly smart state-backed deals. They bought one of the world's biggest cobalt mines, Tenke Fungurume, right out from under a U.S. firm. They made these huge infrastructure for minerals deals, like with Sicko Mines. And the result of all this? Today, it's estimated that Chinese companies own or control somewhere between 70 and 80% of all the cobalt that comes out of the ground in the DRC. And now we're seeing what happens next. That economic power, it's being turned into a weapon. As you can see on this timeline, it's escalating. First, in July 2023, they restrict gallium. Then, in December, graphite. Now they're targeting the US with stricter controls. They're using their chokehold on the supply chain as leverage in this growing geopolitical chess game with the West. This is a new kind of resource war, and right now, China is holding all the aces. So let's connect the dots, shall we? You start with the children in the mines in the Congo. You follow the path to the massive processing plants in China, and then you see how it all feeds into these global power plays. When you put it all together, you start to see the real, just absolutely staggering price of green. And this is what we're calling the climate contradiction. It's this massive, glaring problem right at the heart of the whole thing. We're sold this idea of green technology, but its supply chain is often powered by coal, and it's tied to really significant human rights problems. That clean, green future we all want so badly, right now it's being built on a foundation that is anything but. And that's a disconnect we just can't keep ignoring. And here's the kicker. There's no easy fix here. There's no magic button to press. The simple truth is, the entire energy transition runs straight through China. For the West to build its own independent supply chains, we're talking at least a decade. And over $100 billion. It is a massive chasm. And honestly, the West is just now waking up to how big it really is. So this all leaves us with one last, very uncomfortable question. A question for all of us. Is our clean future being built on a dirty supply chain? As we all race towards this promise of a greener tomorrow,